Monster Hunter Wilds, a game brought to you by the company that brought you a
Jill sandwich
and left you hungering for more. The premier animal rights violation and action-packed food simulator brings you Annoying Kid as Annoying Kid. Fart Monkey. I'd let you handle me anytime. And the guild authorizes you to smash. Welcome to a world that runs perfectly for some, and for others, the modders will fix it. But then what happens if they go too far? Oh, shit. Anyway, coming to PS1. Hey guys, and with that out of the way, obviously we're going to be talking today about Monster Hunter Wilds, a game that has literally taken the world of gaming by storm, with over 1.3 million players consecutively at its peak on Steam, which is insane and is, I believe, in the top 5 of all Steam games at all time. So this is an insane amount of people that have got eyes on Monster Hunter Wilds and have been playing and have bought Monster Hunter Wilds. It's got some great things, some less so great things, but we're going to talk about all of that today and hopefully you enjoy it. Either way, like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into the nitty gritty. Now, the first thing I feel like I should speak about is the characters and the story of Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, if you've played any previous Monster Hunter games, I think a lot of people would struggle to really talk about the story directly. In my personal opinion, Monster Hunter games have always been quite flat in the story. I've never really cared. I've always just wanted to go around and smash farting monkeys and giant dragons in the head with a hammer. That has been the main drive for me. Now, I could be alone in that, but I've always found the stories to be quite lackluster. Most of the characters don't have names outside of nicknames and like different things like Ace Lancer. You know, nothing that draws you into them being specifically important. Commander, Handler. They're just, nobody really had any depth of field. And as a result, the story tended to be a very secondary thing to the game. But with this version, you know, Monster Hunter Wilds, we have characters with names. We have Gemma, the smith that might have some interesting things to do with the story when you look at it later on. There's Alma, our handler, who is a vast improvement of Monster Hunter World's handler, who was a pain in the backside. She actually is an interesting character. She says very meaningful dialogue and just brings something to the story. We have Nata, the little boy that you find, and who is a little bit annoying, but you know, he does get some plot development and character development throughout the story and becomes an interesting character. There's Fabius, who has fabulous hair that matches his name. You know, there's lots of different characters in this that draw you in or push you away depending on the way that they are. And this is something that Monster Hunter has never really done for me before. It made me invested in the characters and in the story and in the world in a sense in itself. I genuinely cared to see what happened. It wasn't just a case of, oh, come on, just get me to the next monster fight. I wanted to listen and I wanted to see the story. And this is not exactly like a really big plus point. I think the story should have always been considered in the previous games, but I can understand why they focused on gameplay, and to be honest, if you've got a good, fun game, then the story kinda can be secondary to that. In this one though, they have decided to put a bit more effort in it, and it shows. And I really enjoyed the story of the game. So, a thumbs up from me. It's not, you know, a masterpiece, but it is a compelling narrative. Now, following that, we're going to talk about the soundtrack of the game, and this, I think, is a very, very important feature. Obviously, you have different events and things going on, you know, different things happening in the game, and the sound is incredibly important, from the monsters' roars to the certain noises that are made when monsters are around. And then there's the music. And Monster Hunter honestly has a fantastic score, a fantastic music ensemble, and overall, I think it just works really, really well when you're going between, just searching around to combat. Everything about the soundtrack just pulls me in and makes me hyped up. And that's the thing about this. When you get into combat, when you're fighting these massive hulking beasts and the music just ramps up and creates an excitement, it is just a very, very effective way that they do these things in these games. And I think it needs a mention because everything about the soundtrack is fantastic. I really enjoyed listening to the game and just sitting around watching the world go by at my camp as, monsters interact and do things with each other while I'm just watching them. And this is something that I think some games nail and some games don't. And I do believe that they've managed to nail a very, very excellent soundtrack in this game. Granted, there's not like huge amounts of tracks, but you don't need to have a huge amount. You just need to make the ones that you have hit right where they need to. And they've definitely done that. Now, normally at this point I would speak about graphics, but I believe that is the biggest and greatest point of contention for a lot of people, mainly on PC. So we'll skip that now and we'll talk instead about the way the game plays. The gameplay. And I have to be honest, I think this is gonna go down as one of my favourite Monster Hunters. Now, I have played Monster Hunter since the third incarnation of the game, and one thing I would say is that this game is so much less clunkier than everything that came before it. Even Monster Hunter Worlds and Rise feel sluggish and clunky in comparison to this. And it's to do with the way that they've evolved the combat system. You're more capable than ever of maneuvering your blows mid-combo. If you miss an attack in the previous games and you were still stuck in a combo, you'd just keep attacking in a straight line and wouldn't be able to get out of it. Whereas in this, you can change the directionality of your attacks mid-combo within reason. There's certain weapons that it doesn't quite work with, but in general, it feels like you're not whiffing your shots half as much, if not even more than that. And this is where a kind of thing that comes to mind with me is that a lot of people are complaining about the difficulty spike in the game, is that Monster Hunter Wilds is easier than previous versions. And part of me is genuinely thinking, is that because maybe they have greater control of their character, and that maybe in previous games the reason you were getting your ass kicked more was because you weren't in full control, in a sense? The clunky controls took away some of that agency. And I do believe there is an element of that your inability to maneuver around being less in Monster Hunter Worlds, Rise, Free, Ultimate, all the previous games. Maybe that was in part a reason which made it a little bit more difficult. Much in the way that a lot of people consider Dark Souls 1 harder than Dark Souls 3, or Dark Souls 2 harder than Dark Souls 3, because the controls were clunkier, in a sense. But, that might just be me, that might just be my opinion. I definitely think that the game could do with some form of difficulty spike, but that is something they will be adding and they will be putting in future updates. They're going to add in more difficulty in terms of higher tier monsters. There's going to be different monsters that have different attack patterns, and harder monsters will be coming in. And they always have the ability to tune that a little bit. They can increase the damage of a certain thing. They can increase the damage you take. There's certain things they can do to make the game a little bit more difficult for people that are finding it a little bit easy. That is something that can be fixed. And for what the game is now, it's still hell of a fun, even if it isn't that supremely difficult challenge that people want. It's still a really, really fun game. And for the base game to be, moderately okay and challenging, nothing too crazy, it will draw more players in and get more people to actually complete the game and become fans of Monster Hunter. So I think overall it works as what it is, because ultimately, the goal of a game is to get people to play it. And if people are like, oh, I don't want to play this, it's too hard, then it can discourage a lot of people. But when you add in different difficulties later on, and you add in different monsters later on that are even more difficult, it then brings the people who are there for a challenge. And I am quite happy with that idea. I'm quite happy that the updates are going to come and make the game more difficult in a sense, but the base game is what it is. Now, I don't think you can really talk about Monster Hunter's gameplay without, at least taking a glance at the weapons and generally how they work. And if you've played previous Monster Hunter games, the weapons that you are fond and familiar with are all back. And for the most part, they work very, very similar to how they did in Monster Hunter Worlds and Rise. But they have updated them and added new, different mechanics in. There's certain things that certain weapons can now do that they couldn't before. And I'm not going to really go into that, but it does freshen it up a little bit that these weapons aren't exactly the same. If anything, they have added combos and added different utilities and abilities that they can use, which is absolutely fantastic. But the main kind of change to how the weapons work is the new wound system. Now, when you are fighting monsters, you will be whacking them, and eventually you'll see scars appear on their body. These scars then turn into wounds, which are just an open cut. And then you can use a focus strike that will do different things to these different wounds. It drops like pieces of monster parts, which you can then use to craft your gear and do all your kind of things. But the main thing that it does is it actually enhances the way that your combat works. So for example, if you were to use a focus strike on your charge blade, this will actually cause your charge blade to go into an alternate mode when it's in its axe version, which essentially turns the axe into a spinning blade, which you can then use in tandem with the charges to get even greater damage. With the bug glaive, you can fire your bug into the wound with a focus strike, and it will charge all three of your bug things, your red, your green, and your white, and it'll basically allow your Kinsect to get maximum power. So you can use wounds to recharge your glaive. All the weapons have similar kind of things that they can do in regards to that. Not all of them are exactly like that, but they all have these unique interactions with focus strikes. And this adds a different utility to it, where you're looking for these different things to do in order to recharge your attacks and then embolden yourself to whack into them. And it's absolutely fantastic. I really enjoy, and it's really satisfying to get a focus strike on something and then get this cool little finisher type move going off that has this pretty cool visual for some of them. I mean, for example, the dual blades, you stab it, and then what you end up doing is you jump off away from them, fire your grappling hook into them, and then you Beyblade all over them. It's really fun to watch, and it makes me go "Roo" every time I see it. It is a really cool mechanic. But that is what it's meant to be. It's meant to be fun. And the way that they approach weapons and the wound system, I think, is peak fun. It's just satisfying. This is the thing about when it comes to different weapons, different things. If you get this kind of visual and this over-the-top animation, it gives you that kind of incentive to try and cause wounds and then utilize them. And it's just fun to watch. I can't reiterate more than that. It is fun to watch me using these weapons and smashing things. Now, when it comes to the gameplay loop, it's pretty much as it always was. You beat up monsters, take pieces of those monsters, make weapons and armor to then beat up monsters. You then beat up those monsters, get bits of them to make weapons and armor to beat up more monsters, and you keep going round and round in circles ad nauseum to beat the crap out of them. It's no different from it is in many other of the Monster Hunter games, so there's not really much else to say about it. Now, I think the last part of the gameplay aspect, I just want to cover the basics of just general gameplay. Obviously, we've got our Sacred, which is the replacement for the dog in Monster Hunter Rise. It is your mount. It functions pretty similar to what the dog did. You can do a gliding option, but for the most part, there's not really anything different about it. You can customize the way it looks, which is fantastic. I love any form of customization that you add into a game to make yourself more unique, to give you a visual that you can, embrace, essentially. But other than that, the dog is pretty similar. When it comes to gathering mechanics, they're all fairly similar. You can use your grappling hook to gather stuff at a distance now. But when it comes to gathering resources, whether it be herbs, like slinger ammo, everything about that kind of works in a very similar manner. We also have environmental mechanics that can be interacted with your slinger and your grappling hook and things like that. And there's a lot more of them in the game than in previous iterations. In Monster Hunter World, I didn't feel like there was a huge amount of environmental aspects, but a big factor in this game is there is a lot of environmental interactivity with different things, where you can pull down dams, you can drop rocks on a thing while it's in water. There's loads of different things that you can interact with and play around with, and it adds a different spice to the game. I really like it. Some people see it as it's made the game easy mode because of that, but at the same time, I would rather have it be fun in easy mode than frustrating in hard mode. Not to say that I found Monster Hunter Worlds frustrating in hard mode, but at the same time, I would much rather the fun than the hard. If it's so fun that I don't care about the difficulty, then I'm not gonna really go, oh, that was kind of easy. If I'm like, that was kind of easy, but it was balls to the wall fun, I'm quite happy. Then we have the fishing mechanics, which are still in the game. They pretty much function very similar to what they did in previous games. There's not really a huge amount different there, but people love fishing games, like fishing mini games rather. So having that in there is a great little added feature. Then there's things like the game's dynamic kind of weather systems. Now each of the regions has different things going on, but the weather can change depending on what's happening, and this causes different things to happen in the environment. And I feel like that's quite a cool little aspect of it. You can change the weather dynamically later on in the game. You can rest and then get to different seasons, essentially, and do different things, and then it helps you farm different monsters and do different things like that. It's nothing breaking the mold. It's not like a completely... But having that different kind of weather and these different things going on in the map, once again, kind of adds to the polish of the gameplay and adds to how you interact with the monsters you're with as well. So overall, I think gameplay wise, they have hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of things that they've done right. The only main complaint I've seen anyone make about the gameplay is that they feel like it's a little too easy. But at the same time, 1.3 million players on Steam alone. They all can't be wrong. The game has received a lot of backlash about different things, but it's not mainly the gameplay that's had that. And with that bombshell of it's not the gameplay that's the problem, we come to the graphics. Now, I'm going to be honest, I am playing this on PC, and I have had very little issues. The game looks stunning, plays stunning, and has been absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love the visual, the landscapes, the sprawling thing, the monsters. Everything is so detailed and absolutely stunning. However, there are a lot of people that are having very, very different experiences on PC to mine. I've seen a lot of horrible graphic glitches and problems with the game. Albeit, I will say that I expect a lot of those people are running lower tier PCs. I know there are some people that are having issues with higher grade PCs, but with the whole dynamic of in PC gaming that certain components interact with certain other components differently, it's very difficult for them to get something that is an entirely polished experience and is seamless for every single person across the board, because what I'm running and what you're running could be very similar, but also drastically different. But my personal experience is the only thing I can really make a genuine comment on, is that this game has been absolutely seamless and stunning. I've had the odd graphical glitch where, something pops out of high res or pops into high res from a really low res texture, or there's been a little stutter, or there has been a character model or monster that has got stuck in an animation and can't move out of it. But at the same time, I experience these kind of things across the board on every game, on every thing I've ever played. I've experienced it on Xbox, I've experienced it on PlayStation, I've experienced it on PC. Not specifically with this game, but with countless other games. So I can't really say that I feel like it's an exclusive problem to this. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not to say that people's experience of this being and running like dog shit is not valid and not valuable information, but my personal experience is the game has been stunning and ran in a very stellar way. And this is what I would say about the graphics of Monster Hunter Wilds. It is a very pretty game. The character models are vastly improved over their previous iterations. The landscapes are stunning. The monsters are absolutely grotesque, terrifying, and beautiful at the same time. I believe that this is an absolutely fantastic game in the visuals, and I also believe it's a fantastic game in the gameplay. Overall, I just feel like Capcom has done a fantastic job, but I do 100% believe that they have poorly optimized it for PC, which happens all too bloody often when it comes to PC ports, and it is a complaint. And when I get these problems, I will complain about them, but I am very lucky that I never really seem to suffer from bad PC ports. I always seem to have the right setup to run these games in a very competent manner. So that is my own form of luck. My heart goes out to everybody that is struggling to play because of these problems, but at the same time, I'm having fun, so I can't really say I'm going to stop playing because someone else was having a poor experience that in a lot of cases might be due to them not having a PC that's capable of running the game at a level that it should. Yeah, sucks to be you in a sense. I don't want this to seem like I'm being, dismissive of people, but yeah, I'm having fun. I'm having fun, and I really love the graphics of the game. Now, let's talk about how I feel about it overall. I think that's been quite clear throughout the video that I have enjoyed this and I absolutely adore it. I love Monster Hunter Wilds. I think this is definitely a contender for Game of the Year, and it has shown a lot of game developers out there that are AAA what they should be aiming for the most part, when it comes to a game. If you make a game that is fun to play, people will come and play it. And so many game devs have forgotten about that at the core and heart of what they're doing. Make the game fucking fun. Make it fun, and I'll play it. If it is playing like a pile of poop, then I'm not going to play it. If it's not fun, I'm not going to play it. This game is absolutely everything we wanted it to be, and then some. Granted, there are some issues. There are always some issues with games these days. But when it comes to this, there's far less issues with this than there have been with any number of things. I can name some absolute turds at launch: Anthem, No Man's Sky, Cyberpunk. There's so many games that have went that route. Fallout 76. Cyberpunk is now one of the best games ever. No Man's Sky has followed suit with that as being possibly one of the best games ever. You've got Anthem, which remained a turd from every part of its existence, and then you've got Fallout 76, which has redeemed itself some way. But we are in an era of gaming where things don't release perfect a lot of the time. But I'd say for the console experience, this has released perfect for a lot of people, and there's a lot more people playing on console than they are playing on PC. It's just, yet again, we've received a poorly optimized PC port. But again, not my experience, so I can't really sympathize or put myself in those people's shoes because I have had a pretty seamless experience. Either way, that is my thoughts and my general review of this game. What does everybody think of Monster Hunter Wilds? I genuinely want your opinions down below. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, all that usual stuff if you want more videos like this from me in the future, because I think it's very important that I get your guys' side of the story and what you guys feel. Because I honestly have not met anybody that's had the severe problems that I know some people have had. I've heard comments and other things, but I've never spoken to someone directly, because everybody that I know that has this game has had a pretty good experience with it. Either way, that is what it is. And we'll end today's video with this. Hopefully, you guys will stick with us with Dune Awakening when that comes out. That'll be the next big game that we will play. But if you're interested in more Monster